Welcome back into the GSMC Sports Podcast as we are continuing to discuss last night's performance for Drake Maye versus his counterpart Jacoby Brissett. And this morning, head coach Jerod Mayo had some interesting comments to make that what seemed like, all the reporting has been that Brissett has been significantly better than Drake Maye throughout training camp. But even after this game, Mayo wasn't ready to fully commit to having Jacoby Brissett be the Week 1 starting quarterback for them. This morning, he was speaking to reporters, and he said that the competition isn't over. He said, quote, "We have 3 more days of training camp practices, and it's our job as coaches to evaluate, and the competition isn't over." So, sounds like, it's not like it was a praise of Drake Maye necessarily and that the momentum has shifted, but it sort of seemed like, based off of where the reporting was at, that 2 preseason games down, that the Patriots probably would have been ready to name their Week 1 starter. It sounds like that's about the deadline for every one of the quarterback battles across the NFL that usually after week 2, with only 1 week left in the preseason, that you would like to have a definitive list of starters. And Mayo is sort of kicking it down the road as much as he sort of can here, which I don't think is the worst thing in the world necessarily. Having that open competition does drive people that much more. Jacoby Brissett is a veteran. He understands the work that he needs to put in, but he would also be honest with himself as well, I'm sure, that it has been a little bit of misfires so far in the couple appearances that he's had in preseason games. And that's obviously, a small fraction of the amount of reps that these players take during training camp. But the thing that I noticed with Brissett as well is the fact that, and this is especially notable coming off of the type of season the Patriots just had, where it seems like he has not been super comfortable with pressure up to this point. Literally his first drop back, seemed like he sort of panicked at the back of the pocket, tried to climb his way up a little bit, and actually walked into a little bit more pressure based off of that. And then he was he was looking for Austin Hooper on a corner route, underthrew him a little bit. And that's one thing that I think does sort of bake into this philosophy as well as to who are the Patriots going to throw out there, because Drake Maye is sort of unquestionably, at least for the time being, the future of the position for the Patriots moving forward. But last year we saw Mac Jones, who I understand definitely not the same talent level as probably even a Drake Maye, especially, talk about their profiles coming into the NFL, but Mac Jones was solid, especially that first season when he was selected to the Pro Bowl. And by the end last year, we saw him seeing ghosts and experiencing pressures that almost weren't even there. And it's because the offensive line was such a disaster for those last 2 seasons that Mac Jones was in charge that it messed with his psyche. And I think that that's where, especially Mac Jones, who isn't exactly, physically exceptional, he really struggled to balance the evasion of pressure and also, trying to overcome that with what's also a pretty lackluster wide receiver group. And I think that, there was maybe just flashes of it. That play specifically sort of reminded me of the idea, at least the theme of the past couple years for the Patriots. It's like, well, as much as the Patriots do definitely want to develop Drake Maye, and game reps are very important in that learning process, there's also a very good chance with how bad this offensive line is that they almost are just going to at least have Brissett take some of the hits for him. And, they signed Brissett to a 1-year deal, $8 million, I believe it was. And that's, I know it's just a 1-year rental, but that's a solid number to attach to a deal like that. You expect that they would probably want him to have some sort of impact on the team. And it might just be important for the Patriots to try and, limit the Patriots themselves from hurting Drake Maye. And I know that that's also sort of a loser mentality in terms of player development. I understand that you should be able to overcome different obstacles and that's part of the learning process, and I do fully understand that, but nobody in their right mind is going to argue that the Patriots have a playoff ready roster, and especially so on that offensive side. I think their defense is fine, but you look at the sort of options and the players surrounding that quarterback position for the Patriots, and it can get a little bit murky. So I think that it's interesting having this come out. That being said, I do feel like Drake Maye showed last night that, yes, I know they're trying to work on the footwork and everything, and there's definitely a learning curve ahead for Drake Maye, but at the same time, the physical ability that he has and the mobility, that might be enough to help him survive behind a poorer offensive line. Now, you don't want that to be the long-term idea. I think offensive line is the number one thing the Patriots are going to have to target over the next 12 months, whether it be in the draft or in free agency or even making trades, that the next step for them is solidifying that offensive line, because it's been a bit of a disaster these past couple years. But I do feel like at least for half of a season, Drake Maye could hold his own to be able to, navigate it at least to some degree. And I definitely don't want to get ahead of myself here reacting to a preseason game and now saying, bring it on, bring on the pressure that Drake Maye is ready for it. I don't think that that's the case, because again, he has a lot of, fundamental skills that he's going to need to continue to develop. But I do also feel like if anything were to happen and Drake Maye were to be thrusted into the starting lineup, whether it be for him somehow sort of pulling off a late comeback in training camp, being able to steal it from Brissett, or if Brissett were to go down at any time, that I think that Drake Maye still definitely wouldn't be in a good situation, but I don't think he would be quite as unable to overcome some of those obstacles early on in his career as a lot of other people said. Especially growing up, I was a huge fan of Colin Cowherd for Fox Sports, and still very talented, but I remember he went on a little bit of a monologue a couple weeks ago, and it was about how Drake Maye, it was especially when the offensive line was struggling, and he made a claim that because the offensive line's bad, because the wide receivers are bad, if any of the rookies are going to steal the job, it's going to be Joe Milton, because he is a bigger body, he's more athletic, he's more physically capable of sort of handling some of the physical hits and such that are going to take place. He's probably a little bit faster than Drake Maye in terms of being able to use his legs, but Drake Maye, I think that his athleticism was so massively undersold throughout the months leading up to the NFL draft, where he's no slouch whatsoever. He comes from an extremely athletic family. Notably, his brother Luke Maye was a part of one of those North Carolina championship teams in the 2010s. So it's not like he wouldn't be able to hold his own whatsoever. Mac Jones was almost fragile in terms of the fact that he didn't really have the mobility and such to be able to overcome what was a very bad offensive line. And I stand by Mac Jones 100% about the lack of effectiveness of the Patriots organization to surround him with competent players. But Drake Maye, I do think, has a little bit of an edge over Mac because of the natural athletic ability that I think it's going to be an interesting conversation. Now, all of this being said, I do think that Jacoby Brissett is going to be the starter when it's all said and done week 1, but again, the encouragement I got from Drake Maye last night, you can't get over your head in terms of excitement levels, but it was definitely a positive sign, and the Patriots have a long way to go. But in terms of that quarterback position, just at least having a plan at the position for the next few years is a massive step in the right direction for the Patriots. And I know that almost sounds so pathetic, especially when you're talking about the Patriots, who were once the golden standard of the NFL. But times have changed. So now it's a little bit, it's a significantly lower bar now than it used to be. But let me know what your thoughts are in the comments section as to whether or not you think that Drake Maye is going to be capable of sort of holding his own with this current roster, what the Patriots' philosophy should be in terms of, helping him develop over the course of this rookie season where, the Patriots aren't necessarily headed for high hopes whatsoever. So let us know what you have to think, but we are now going to be shifting gears to another quarterback conversation as we are getting some reports that the Dallas Cowboys are supposedly gaining momentum on a potential contract extension with quarterback Dak Prescott. So we will discuss whether or not Dak is worth the money, whether or not that's the right star for the Cowboys to be fixating on right now, and more. So stick with us and we will be right back with more on that after this quick break.